Hi, welcome to yet another episode of Disruption Talks, where we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and scaling products. I am Agata from NetGuru, and I am a UX practice expert. And today with me, we have Andrea, CEO of Vira Health. Hello, Andrea.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really great having you. You have a very exciting company and a very exciting product. So I'm really looking forward to talking some more about it. So maybe just to start, what does a day of a co-founder at Vira Health look like?
Yeah. I mean, every day is different, obviously, and it changes very quickly. But I think in general, we're getting ready to release a pretty significant product update in the coming weeks. So I would say the days are a bit more jam-packed than usual. So I think we try to start each of our days a little powwow with my co-founder, whether that's over coffee or going for a walk and trying to set our objectives together, make sure we're on the same page. It's a relationship I really value, and I find that quite nice to start the day. And then kind of chaos ensues, whether it's on Slack or email or the phone or the 100 other ways we can communicate these days, email, and it's kind of just firefighting.
Mhm. Okay, all right. So we have a lot of uncertainty on the market today. Inflation, startup layoff, possible recession. What's on your mind today as a co-founder? And does the current market turn down make you think differently about the future of Vira Health and forcing you to maybe recalibrate some mission goals planned for this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's an obvious question. So I think just for timeline, we raised our second round at the beginning of this year. And so we had a view to what the next 18 months, 2 years would look like, what we were trying to do with that money. And I think then a lot of people say the world changed, and that's for sure it did. But I think if you look at the amount of money that goes to female founders or women's
Mhm.
health topics, it was never the kind of crazy rounds that you read about. And so I think, frankly, the investors that were interested in us then, are still interested in us and similar to the future. So I feel like this space is in some ways a little bit isolated. However,
Mhm.
it would be crazy to not acknowledge what's going on. And the way I think about this is in two really separate ways. First, we're in the UK, and the cost of living kind of crisis is real, and it's affecting the people that work for us and the families of the people that work for us and our partners and our suppliers and the community that we're in. And so that's a really important conversation that we have to be part of as employers, as partners, all of that. Then separately, there's a conversation about the correction or the VC market and what that means for a company like ours. And I think, you know, our it's hard to be you're on LinkedIn and you see that there are retrenchments. I get an email with an Excel sheet of great people, every couple days saying like, hey, we had to lay off, these X number of people. They're excellent. If you need them, get in touch. And so you can't not feel like there is a change in the market. It does mean we've been able to hire some great people, and that's been wonderful to bring more people into women's health,
Mhm.
topics that we care about. And it's also forced us to think quite critically about how we spend. Money is time, and the more time we have to prove what we're doing, the better for everyone. And so I would say we've probably thought about runway, thought about where we can be a bit more frugal, just to give ourselves as much, space to prove
Mhm.
what we're trying to prove.
Yeah. And so your company grew quite a lot. How do you manage that rapid growth within the company?
Yeah, people growth is both great. When you start a company, and it was two of us for quite a while, and then it was maybe six of us for a really long time. You have to do everything. And there are some things about that that's great. You have a bunch of people doing some things they're really good at and loads of things they're doing their best at,
Mhm.
but isn't necessarily their area of expertise. And as you scale, you get to hire people who have that particular area of expertise. And then obviously they do way better than the kind of generalist activity we were doing before. So it's exciting. It's wonderful. Uh, on the flip side, more people is more interactions, kind of, more opinions, more needs. And
Mhm.
that's great, but it takes real time to manage that, to make sure people gel, to make sure people connect. We're a distributed company. Some people are remote, some people are in an office, making everyone feel included, finding ways that don't feel ridiculous to do, like, fun Zoom activities.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Maybe that's an oxymoron, although we found one that people like. And
All
so
right.
scaling, I think, we're fortunate to be able to hire more people to, build this company, but
Mhm.
it certainly adds to the complexity.
Yeah, sure. I'm curious about this fun Zoom activity. Maybe you'd be willing to share later if we have time. um, Talking now more about women health. Vira Health is focused on women health and improving their healthcare in terms of menopause and female-specific conditions.
Yes.
This is a really exciting topic that personally I also believe is underserved. What made you choose this particular path within the healthcare industry?
Yeah. A few years ago, so kind of 2019, I had left my job
Mhm.
and I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I was speaking to loads of people about, you know, what I should do. And it was
Mhm.
pretty broad, but I ended up speaking to a load of people, kind of, let's say 48 to 55. And a lot
Wow.
of them were women because that's my network. And they gave me lots of great advice. But I started to
Mhm.
notice this interesting thread about menopause. And I had never thought about it that much.
Mhm.
And what I started to realize was it was much more complicated than the kind of stereotype that I had in my mind, which
Yeah.
is hot flashes, sweating and sleepless nights. Actually, it was far more complex, that it was,
Mhm.
mental symptoms, it was physical symptoms, joint pain, heavy bleeding, uh, mood issues, difficulty sleeping, hot flushes, night sweats. It was all these different things. And could be not for everyone, but it could be incredibly disruptive. And
Yeah.
someone who'd been in a corporate career for, 10 plus years and not seen very many women at the top, I thought, is it possible that one of the things, not the only thing, but one of
Mhm.
the things that might be standing in the way of a lot of kind of senior growth for women is menopause care? And so I got far more interested in this topic.
Mhm.
I met the amazing Dr. Rebecca Love, who's my co-founder, and
Mhm.
she's a chronic disease epidemiologist by background, and menopause is not a chronic disease, but kind of lifestyle and behavior change and
Yes.
how you manage chronic disease has some overlaps. And so the two of us really came to menopause differently, but
Mhm.
knew it was something that really needed better care, better treatment options, more awareness, all those things. And so, yeah, we started um, like early 2020, so just before the pandemic. I
All
do
right.
not know that I recommend kicking off as the world shuts down, but it was.
Let's remember that before the next world shutdown, right? As if we could predict that. Um, so it's a very specific group that you're serving, women experiencing menopause. And while this group is, of course, very big, it is quite specific. So what obstacles are you facing as a company to cater such specific group?
Yeah, I think when you want to do something in healthcare, it's actually really important to be specific so that you
Mhm.
can, in fact, improve care. So as you say, it's not I mean, it's half the world, right?
Yes.
Um, but it is, I think the specificity is really important if you actually want to make a change in that treatment option that's available to women.
Mhm.
I think there are loads of really great, communities online and really great places where you can learn some information or share your experience. But if you really are focused on improving treatment, so like if a woman does X, will she see a reduction in her symptoms, severity, or frequency? Like then you actually have to get hyper targeted and you have to be really specific. We are building something that helps women manage menopause symptoms. And I think the specificity also means that we, can hire really specific experts that have looked at this, that we can then, make sure that what we're delivering to women works and helps them feel better.
Yeah, I think that's really important because we really do lack education in that matter. I mean, I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I don't really have any education about menopause other than what is being portrayed in the movies as, stereotypes, like you said, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't either before I embarked on this journey. It was a real learning curve for me. I think that's changing to some degree. In the UK, you have quite a lot of kind of media attention. Some really important campaigners and celebrities and politicians have made use of their platform in such positive ways. We've had 2 documentaries on television that loads of people have watched, and it's been quite interesting to see, a lot of people really outside of my immediate community kind of talking about menopause now or asking questions. So we are seeing a change there. And in the UK for sure, I think in the US to some degree, which are the 2 markets we're active in,
Yes.
but a long way to go.
Yes. So you mentioned that early this year in March, you received the second round of funding, and this time that was $12 million, if I'm correct. So what are your growth plans for the upcoming months? What are the challenges in sight?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. So our initial product is an app called Stella, which is a lifestyle and behavior change approach to menopause. So what that means is similar to an app like Noom or Sleepio that guides you through a specific program to help you manage, in this case, menopause symptoms. We do that across most of the most bothersome symptoms of menopause. What we raised the money for was to expand that to offer online doctors' consultations and ultimately expand the care options so that we can prescribe medication if that's appropriate, and do other follow-up care. So launching the kind of first end-to-end online digital clinic or menopause platform is the focus of our this year and into the next year. The other priority is growing in the US. So a lot of things to do. We have a software internally, for feedback and how people are doing to take the temperature of the company. And someone wrote one of the questions was how would you feel people could do better or feel more supported at work? And someone this week wrote do fewer things with a smiley face. And I thought, fair enough, but such is the nature of a startup when you're trying to figure out what works, is doing a lot of things. So for us, it's focusing on, building a medical practice so that we can really give women all of the care that they need at menopause, and expanding in the US.
Oh, that's very, very exciting. So about Stella, unfortunately, I'm not in the UK nor in the US, so I couldn't really experience it. I've just seen a video walkthrough. But the app sounds very exciting. Could you walk us through a little bit how it works?
Absolutely. Yes, coming soon to a country near you. So the way Stella works is we take a really symptom-led approach. And I think what's important is that every person's menopause is going to be different. How the symptoms manifest in terms of which ones or their severity or frequency is going to be different. And so we want to make sure that we can adapt as much as possible to a woman's specific situation. So she comes on and she tells us what's bothering her. So that sleepless nights and incontinence, or maybe it's weight gain and hot flushes. And then Stella builds a plan to fit those symptoms. So it guides a woman through the evidence-based guidelines or guidance to help her manage that. So it's unlocked in a weekly lesson. She can set habits and track progress. And there's a coach to help if the various habits aren't really working for you and you want to problem solve other ways to manage. And we have weekly events. You can join a group coaching session. We had one recently on managing menopause at work. We've also had them on other topics like weight loss at menopause or sleep, which is a huge topic for the people on our platform. We also have Q&As with experts in the week. And then there are a number of other features in the app, such as a glossary on treatment options, description of all the symptoms. So it's really a place where you can get all the information that you need if you just want to kind of dip in and learn, or you can get on a real plan that takes you week by week to help you tackle a symptom.
All right, that's a lot, and given the variety of symptoms that are physical and then psychological as well, and they're so very different from one another. I wonder, how can one app
do it all? Yeah,
do it all, exactly, like track it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tracking piece is really quite small. And actually, for a lot of women, tracking isn't something they want to do because things change so often that the kind of specificity of how many hot flushes you had on Tuesday isn't the point. But tracking overall how you're feeling, that's important.
Yeah.
When we were first fundraising, a lot of investors said exactly that. They were like, it's so much. Why don't you just start with one symptom? Start with sleep or start with mood questions. And we felt really strongly that the whole point here is that all of these things interact and that a woman is actually experiencing all of these different symptoms in some combination. And she needs to be able to flex between all of those in one place. So a great bit about Stella is that if your symptoms change, we can adapt the plan, automatically to those changing symptoms. And I think that's really important because the idea that a woman is going to ask or is going to have 7 apps on her phone for different symptoms and move between them, it's unrealistic. And so in the end, we felt we had to build it all. And so, yeah, it was a lot of work. So I can say.
All right. So we actually have a question from the audience. And it's, are you planning to certify as a medical app? And how restrictive and demanding is the environment in the UK in that case?
Yeah, it's an interesting question and one that's top of mind for us. Right now, the way Stella works is, although it's adapted to a woman's specific symptoms, the type of advice that you get is not classified as medical advice. So, for example, in the same way that a weight loss app or a sleep app is not necessarily classified that way. And I think we've chosen to stay on that side of the regulations for now. But as we learn more, if our ability to personalize increases, we would explore regulation as appropriate.
Okay. So what were the main challenges when you were building this app?
Oh my God, all of them. My co-founder and I are first-time founders and we're non-technical. I mean, that's what people say, non-technical. That basically means neither of us is an engineer.
Right.
And so that meant in the beginning, I would say the real challenge was kind of finding the right partners to help us build, but also making sure that our kind of vision and all of the expertise that we were working with was in this app. We have great partners and we're able to do that. I think the biggest challenge in a lot of ways is just how diverse our group is, right? It's all women mostly over a certain age. And so you have people that are interested in everything, that want to receive information in different ways, that have different levels of knowledge, that have different preferences, just all of that. And so really listening to the people on our platform and building for them actually still a really big piece of work. I don't want to underestimate how difficult fundraising is. And because again, money is time. And so having money in order to be able to test lots of different hypotheses has been, both difficult and also really a great thing for us. Finding great people who want to work in women's health was a challenge, but I'm pleased to say is really decreasing. if I compare 2 years ago, like the pitch I felt we had to do to like people, trust us. This is going to be a really interesting, question. And now I actually find we don't have to do that nearly as much. And people are excited to work in women's health. Whatever their skill set, whatever their gender.
Okay.
And that's really rewarding.
I was actually wondering what's your, gender balance in your company. Is there many men working on Stella?
Look, our gender balance skews in one way, but we do have, and we have men in technical fields and sales fields. And so that's been great. And, young women also aren't experiencing menopause, right? And so I think in a lot of ways, loads of us end up working in environments that we don't have absolute direct, like current, experience with, and that it's incumbent upon us to be super empathetic and really listen. And I think that's great.
Okay. So before I move to another question from the audience, I would like to ask one myself, which is, so many women come from places with limited access to healthcare. And how do you make sure that your services reach those women as well?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we do that I think is great is we are building something that is incredibly low cost and leveraging technology. And so that's, I think, really important. I think that, the ability to bring specialist menopause care to places where it doesn't exist is something that we're going to be able to do. I mean, even just in the UK, there's a huge postcode lottery about whether or not you can access a menopause specialist. And then that's obviously made even worse if you kind of consider the entire world. And so I think, it's incumbent upon us to build a product that works, that is great, so that we can scale it to even more geographies. But we're incredibly focused on making sure it's as inclusive as possible in the markets that we're in right now. And we're thinking about language, and we're thinking about making it accessible on all smartphones, which increasingly this demographic is incredibly present. So yeah, it matters to us, and I really want to make sure that women of all kind of backgrounds feel safe and comfortable and understand the information that we're giving. And obviously, we hope to expand to as many geographies as possible.
So talking about expansion, there's a question from the audience, whether you plan to focus on other health-related issues in the future, for example, an app for people with diabetes, cardiovascular problems, or more recently to maybe track after COVID symptoms.
I think those are all great ideas for businesses, and someone else should do them. I think we have tons cut out for ourselves with, the 30 plus symptoms of menopause for half the population. And I think if you want, I really feel if you want to do something, you need to be focused and do it well. And so we're pretty focused on that. I think there are some interesting lead-ins from better menopause care to cardiovascular disease, but for the most part, I think Omada's got diabetes pretty covered. And I'm sure there's other people figuring out how to track after COVID symptoms.
All right. So how to actually raise awareness and stress the importance of the need of development in this aspect of women's health?
Sorry, could you?
Sorry. So what would be your take on how to raise awareness and stress the importance of the need of development in this area of women's health?
Yeah, I think awareness is something that obviously we hope comes, because it can't be our full focus, and we're really lucky that some key campaigners have really made this their core focus. And so we see awareness driving activities happening. So it's Menopause Month in October, World Menopause Awareness Month. Okay. And so certainly in my feeds, there can be a bit of an online echo chamber, but in my feeds, we see lots of people starting to talk about this issue, which is great. Lots of companies doing events during this month. Like everything, it's better to do it more than once a year, but once a year is better than nothing. And so I think like there have been quite a few important pieces. There's been some great books that have come out on menopause in the last year by really like famous and great authors. And that's helped, I think. Yeah, we all just have to keep like chipping away at these things. And I don't want to pretend that menopause is the only like underserved, topic here. There's loads of areas, whether it's in women's health or other kind of, underrepresented healthcare questions, and so I think we all just have to kind of keep asking ourselves what's missing from the conversation.
Mm-hmm. So a question from the audience, but as it happens also from my field, I'm feeling a designer behind that question. How are you validating and improving the product? Have you managed to, and how did you manage to engage and build a community on such an early stage?
Yeah, I agree. Great question. So we have really kept user research at the kind of core of what we do. We actually received a grant from the UK government called Designing for Healthy Aging, which has allowed us to actually spend a lot of resources on, co-creation with big user groups. And so what we did, I find the word user a bit funny in this context. So what we did was we have found that kind of separating by symptom area has been really helpful for us because, if you're coping with sleep, you have some views on what works for that, how you want to interact with an app, what bothers you, what works, what doesn't. And it's really different if you're talking about incontinence and pelvic floor physio, where you might need like to be standing somewhere. And so, so we found that by separating by symptom area and maintaining real diversity in those groups from background, knowledge, that allowed us to have really, really fruitful discussions. And so we did a lot of that over this summer. We then also, on the question about engaging and building a community. So we launched our first like real MVP situation in February of 2021, I believe. And we had about 5 kind of partners. So one was a yoga teacher, and another woman was a meditation specialist, and another woman was a GP. And they kind of opened up, they talked to their networks about why Stella was, existed, what it did, what we were trying to do. And we really opened that conversation as like a help us build this, please. And so I'd say our early users on our first product, they came through really credible introductions. They came through someone that said like, I think this is a really good idea. Would you, and so the transitive property.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really important to us always. And I have to admit, whenever I see, like if I see someone from that early day, like comment on one of our Instagram posts or something, I feel really happy that they've stuck around.
I can imagine. And another question from the audience. How painful are costs of marketing for your products? Is there any secret sauce or hints that you use to promote your app that you can share?
Sadly, I'm not the right person to answer this one. I guess we are predominantly a B2B sales channel. So employers subsidize the cost of Stella for their employees. And so marketing looks quite different in that respect. So sorry, no secret sauce from me. Not because I'm holding on to it, but because I don't have it.
Okay. So a nice shout out to us. Hi, Agatha and Andrea. Great to see you here. Andrea, congrats on securing another round of funding this year. These are not easy times for startups. What convinced your investors? What is the biggest challenge dealing with investors from your perspective?
Thanks. I think so. The advice I give about this usually is just to say, I think fundraising is really hard and everyone's story is different. And so if I try to generalize from our experience, it's that not all investors are for everyone. And that's both obvious and actually like kind of helpful, because what we knew is like we're female founders in a women's health business, in a digital therapeutic, an app-based treatment. And it's like we needed to find investors that had already been convinced of those things in order to invest in us. And so we looked at the investors who were in other digital therapies. So who were Kaya Health's investors, who were Omada Health's investors. And then we looked at companies that had already done women's health investments. So who's made fertility investments? Because that was a way of saying those investors have already bought into a lot of the things that we're trying to convince investors of. And so they're already kind of, predisposed to this area. And so I think the thing for us was to find investors that even already had a menopause thesis. So like they already had said, we believe in this market. We think it's underserved. We think there's a business to be built here. Pardon me. Sparkling water. And so those investors were always going to be a better fit for us. And then when I had conversations with other investors that had never looked at these areas, they were fine, but I could tell that like the distance to convince them was so much further that the chance of us getting there was way less. So I think like what convinced our investors is that, I think we're doing something really important and we have a great idea and we have some early traction that's really impressive and all of those sorts of things. But it's also that they were already on the road to being convinced in our market. That's really important. And then the biggest challenge dealing with them, I mean, you do pick your investors. You can say no. It doesn't feel like that always, but you can. And so I think with us, like we do really have a great relationship with them right now. I think everyone feels anxiety in this current market. And so it's important for us to all agree, on the direction of travel and what we're going to prove and how long it's going to take us because, you're one team.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So now a question we ask to most of our guests. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but maybe I'm the only one. Let's see. If you have a magic wand, if you could cast a spell that allowed you to provide education on a specific topic to all 12-year-olds in the world, what would it be?
Yeah. I think I'm going to surprise you here. I was chatting to my co-founder this morning about this question. So reveal, I had this one in advance. And I think something that I've learned being in tech for a short period, this is, is how much opportunity you have as a software engineer and work in so many different super cool environments. You can earn a lot of money. You can travel the world. And so if I was thinking about what I would want every 12-year-old to know about, I would want them to at least be exposed to coding and software development as a career option. Because I think there's loads of really cool NGOs doing this, and I should probably find out about them. But that's what I would want. Yeah. Because I just think access, you can write your own ticket, and it's such amazing access to the world of work and being able to explore all different passions. And so, yeah, more coding in middle school.
Cool. Of course, I thought it's menopause, but or female health at least. But I think
thought about that too. But I think if I only have one magic wand,
sure,
then I choose this.
And so maybe following up on this a little bit, you being, like you said, new to the tech world, how does it feel those couple years in for you?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it. So my background, I was a management consultant for a really long time. And I think in professional services, you kind of rise through the ranks. And so a lot of people actually do a really similar job, you grow in seniority and more responsibility, but it's a really similar job up and down the ranks. Whereas in tech, in a company, everyone does such different things. Like no one can do someone else's job. So the designer, I can't draw. Not that that's all a designer does, but I'm saying I can't do those things. Or like the software engineer is different. And then, the sales and marketing people are different. And the content writer is different. And so you have all these people who work together to get this common goal accomplished. And I find that sense of community and shared goal with, like, sometimes I like to say, like, we all have the same job but different skills, and I love that about it. And just seeing what's possible, right? Like going from absolutely nothing to, you know, someone being able to download Stella, you know, in Texas, and that just feels really rewarding. And so yeah, love it.
Oh, that's cool. That must feel quite empowering. That's something to be jealous about in a good way, of course. All right. This is it. Thank you so much for this conversation. Super interesting, very enlightening, and I'm really looking forward to Stella being available by the time I hit menopause in Poland.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Awesome.
Count on me.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all the questions from the audience.
Awesome.
That's it.
Cool. Thank you.